Today I'm super excited to be bringing you a review of the Square Omni. This is Square's follow-up to the super successful Square Home Edition. This is a 4-camera unit with no subscriptions. It gives you impact location, it gives you all of your ball and club data. So I'm going to put chapter links down below, but we're going to talk about real-life use with the Square Omni here on the simulator. We're going to fire up the driving range and course play, the closest to the pin mode, the putting practice, and I'll give you my thoughts on each of those features. We're also going to take a look and talk about some of the physical characteristics of this unit. It has an on-device display, so you can use this without hooking it up to an external device. This really checks a lot of boxes for me, and I have a thought that this might dethrone the Bushnell Launch Pro as my preferred launch monitor in the sub $3,000 category. Let's spend some time with this today, and I'll tell you what I like about it and what I don't, and I'll give you my thoughts on whether this is something you should consider versus maybe the Bushnell Launch Pro or something like the Mevo Gen 2, which are natural comparisons for this. The Mevo Gen 2, really the only launch monitor in the sub $2,000 space that gives you impact location. The Square Omni gives us that as well. So you can see this thing lights up like a Christmas tree. Having this thing in front of you, it's kind of fun to look at. There's so many colors and lights always on. The infrared LEDs, these are always lit up in red. They turn brighter when they achieve ball lock. I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But this thing's basically always shining lights at you, from the status indicator to the infrared LEDs to the display readout on the device. And when I first saw this at the PGA show, I was skeptical that this on-device display would be helpful from the hitting area. It's actually a little bit more readable than I expected it to be. The labels aren't, but the data points are. So if you kind of get used to what data points live at what location, you can see the primary numbers here. This does not give you club data on this display. It only gives you ball data. And this is not a touch screen. This is just a static display. You can't change the data points here. They're fixed kind of like they are on the Bushnell Launch Pro. It's kind of a funny shape. It's got this tall, long torso and these stubby little legs down here, which give it a little bit of a funny appearance. No offense to people with stubby legs. These tripod legs, these are made out of aluminum. They feel pretty sturdy. The attachment mechanism for this is that the whole tripod mount comes off of the unit, and this unit has a little interlocking place here. There's actually 2 USB-C ports here that are not accessible when this is hooked up to the tripod. Maybe firmware updates or maintenance. So the other thing I want to mention is that the charging port here, this has a DC barrel adapter versus USB-C charging like the Square Home Edition did. I wish this had USB-C charging, but the Bushnell Launch Pro and the Garmin R50 are the same way. These lenses are exposed like they are on the Bushnell Launch Pro, but they're protected because they're inset enough that a ball can't impact them. Same goes for the screen. It's inset enough that a golf ball can't impact this. The Square has a hard plastic black face. The rest of this silver part is aluminum. I think this would hold up to getting hit by a golf ball, but that might crack. So I don't know if there's gonna be a case available for this or if there's already one, but that's something to keep in mind. So now the Square app that you use with the Omni, it's the same as you have with the Square Home Edition. Square Golf refreshed this recently with the 2.0 version of their app. It added this Lodge driving range variant. It got rid of the Bayport driving range. The user interface changed a little bit, and we've obviously got some more data points and some more analysis tools to support face impact on the Omni. So my initial impressions are that the Square Omni is super impressive. It's got some quirks, it's got some things that are a little bit weird, but for the most part, this works really well. Super reliable. I've had a couple of no reads on driver, even when it said it was ready. I don't know if those are because it was near the edge of the hitting area, but I haven't had any misreads. I haven't had any reads that made me scratch my head. Just a couple of no reads. One of my favorite things about the Bushnell Launch Pro is how easy it is to align. You just drop the alignment stick in front of the Launch Pro and it automatically picks it up. You don't have to go into a settings menu. And the Square Omni works the same way. You drop the alignment stick in front of this, it sees it, and it automatically shows you the right or left offset, and you don't have to go into any menus to do that. I really like that. Good job, Square. I'm not on the driver, I'm on the 7-iron. All right, 7-iron. That's another really solid strike though. 34 yards apex, 180 carry. I'm catching most of these just on the inside, just heel, overcorrected for those first couple toe shots. I'm really crushing the 7-iron. Let me try opening the face a little bit more and try to keep it straight. All right, a little more fadey on that one. 31 yard apex, 170 carry. Felt good. Good one to end on. I gotta say, if I was in the market for a new launch monitor today and my budget was $2,000 or less, it'd be hard to justify buying anything other than the Square Omni. It's not perfect, the form factor's a little weird, the display's a little weird, but when you're hooked up to your iPad or a PC or anything like that, the on-device display doesn't matter that much. So the Square Golf On-Course play is actually pretty good. The graphics are nice. I like the interface. There's a lot to love here. The only thing I don't like is you can only take 3 mulligans per hole. It's something I wish Square would change, but I think it has to do with their pricing model, the per hole credit system. They don't want you taking too many shots on one hole. Driver here, uphill shot, 10 yards up. See if we can keep one in play here. Looks like some tall grass out to the left and the right. That felt pretty good, but I think it's gonna fade out too far into the right. It's gonna end up in the rough. Okay, well, just next to that bunker there. So, next shot here, 195 yards. We do have a rough penalty. I was gonna try to play my 5-iron here. If I really pure it, I think I can get it there. It doesn't happen real often with my 5-iron, but it's not impossible. That felt pretty good. Came up short. That rough penalty just took off a little more than I expected, I think. So I came up short. All right, 15 yards. I hit that about as pure as I could. Now I am curious, is there a way to see your shot metrics on the last shot? It doesn't look like it. If I hit the replay button, this is the mulligan button. It says available 3. I'm not gonna burn one of those there, obviously. Well, it came up a little short. Putting on the Square Home Edition was really solid, and I expect putting on the Omni to be just as good, if not better. So we've got the ball lined up here. This barely breaks left to right. It's a little bit uphill. 12 feet. So this is pretty straight, just maybe left edge. Give this a shot. Came up a little short, but that felt about right. Putting on the Square, pretty reliable, even with really short putts. Even if you have a 3 or 4 footer, I find that this picks up putts with no problem. Things are feeling pretty good so far. That first hole was a little rough. Bogey birdie. We got a par 3 here coming up. So we've got 150 yards, down 6 yards. Kind of a lot. I'm gonna try a pitching wedge here. I don't know if that's too ambitious, but feels right with that downhill. I think a 9 would be too much here. Give this a shot. Felt pretty good. It's gonna be out to the left though. I think I pulled that just a little bit. Yeah, out to the left. 153 yards. Distance was right on. So I'll have another little chip shot here. 12 yards to the pin. Okay, one thing I want to mention, I do really like that Square gives me the distance to the edge of the green as well as the total distance. So I've got 6 yards to the fringe green interface, and then I've got 12 yards total to the hole. Give this just a little nudge. Not quite enough of a nudge. 9-foot par putt here. All right, we sunk it for a par. So we are even through 3 holes. That's course play on the Square Golf Launch Monitor. I really like it. You know, if you're okay playing some made-up courses, if you're okay having a relatively small catalog, the gameplay experience here, it's pretty satisfying. It's pretty fun. I feel like the physics are pretty solid. I just don't play it much because of that 3 mulligan limit, because I really like to try shots over and over. The Square, while the course play is really nice, they don't give you an on-course practice mode. I wish they did. Wish I could fire up one of these courses and practice some of these approach shots, but it's not in the feature set right now. If the Square Omni sounds interesting to you or the Bushnell Launch Pro, you know where to get them. Head over to playbetter.com where you get free 2-day shipping, free returns, even on things like launch monitors. And you've got some of the best customer service around. So if you have any questions, if you're not sure if the Square Omni is right for you, ask any questions you want, and PlayBetter is going to get you squared away with the right solution for you. All right, so honestly, I'm pretty blown away by this unit. It's super fast to register shots. It seems really accurate. It tracks putts and short chips really well. The 4-camera system gives me face impact without a subscription, which is pretty amazing. As a reminder, the Mevo Gen 2 gives you face impact without a subscription too. It's a separate unlock to buy that. But the Mevo Gen 2 and the Square Omni are pretty similar as far as price points concerned, including face impact. So depending on your setup, if you're playing with mixed left and right-handed users, you might still gravitate towards the flight scope, or if you want really, really in-depth club data and swing data, the Mevo Gen 2, it's still the champion in that regard. But as far as convenience, the camera-based unit, this is so easy to use. You set it up in the hitting position, you turn on the power button, you fire up your iPad or your PC, and it pairs, and the Square app works pretty seamlessly. Now, my experience hasn't been perfect. I've had a couple connection dropouts, even when my iPad's literally directly above this thing on a tripod. I've had it drop the Bluetooth connection and reconnect pretty quickly, but enough to just interrupt the session for a moment. And I have had a couple of no reads on driver, only 3 total in the time I've used this. A couple of those, the ball was kind of near the edge of the acceptable area, so that might be something to consider. If you're hitting driver, try to make sure it's centered in that hitting area. I think it's maybe a little bit more sensitive for driver. Now the other thing, this display, I'd rather have a display on the unit than not have one at all, and to fit in the form factor they have, I kind of understand why they put it here, but I far prefer the top-mounted display of the Bushnell Launch Pro. It's much easier to see when you look down at it. I also appreciate that it's a touch screen, so I can interact with the settings of the device without firing up a separate iPad or phone or connecting to it. The Square Omni, while you can use it without being paired to something, there's not really any settings on screen. There is a mode button up here, but if you can see this, what the mode button does is it switches this from regular mode to putter mode. And so if you wanted to use this standalone specifically for putting, you'd switch that to putter. Otherwise, you'd have this in the normal mode, and you can switch right or left-handed. Single tapping the M button brings up the putter mode, and if you long press it, it switches from right-handed to left-handed user mode. So you have access to those basic settings, at least on the device, without having to fire up an app. On the Bushnell Launch Pro, I can set things like my elevation, I can turn the backlight on or off, I can swipe around the screen to see more metrics, I can connect it to Wi-Fi, a lot more to do on the Launch Pro. The other thing I want to mention here is you can use this with third-party apps like GS Pro without a subscription on the Square itself. Again, that's similar to the Mevo Gen 2 model. The Bushnell Launch Pro, on the other hand, you have to pay $500 a year just to unlock third-party connectivity. So that's a huge win for the Square Omni if you intend on using GS Pro or Awesome Golf as your primary sim software, but the included ecosystem is pretty solid. Okay, so here in the main menu, we have driving range we looked at, we have game on the right, which is course play, which we looked at, and then here in the middle, we've got closest to the pin and putting practice. If we look at closest to the pin, this is really just the set your own distance target mode. So you can see here, we can set the distance to fixed at a given distance if we want to practice that, or we can set it to be slowly increasing, so that'll go, from 10 yards to 20 yards, or we can set it to random. Random's a great way to cycle through the bag and practice things, so let's go ahead and try that. Let's do random. We can change this distance window. All right, so now we've got an 85-yard shot. For me, this is probably a 60-degree wedge. Try and get this in play here. A little long, little left. Okay, 100 yards, moving up. Put this away. Now I'm gonna grab my sand wedge. It's a 54 degree. Let's move this up a little bit more into the center of the hitting zone. 100 yards. Oh, I pulled that. 130. All right, this is a great shot for me. This is a pretty full gap wedge. This is a shot I like a lot. No excuses to mess this one up. Felt great. Felt like the shot. A little too much, but right on line. I'm happy with that. 90 yards. Should we try 90 with the gap wedge? Sure, why not? Let's keep the same club. Tried to get some spin on that one. Nice. Gap wedge. It's the only club I need in the bag, I think. All right, 95 yards here. Let's go ahead and hit this last shot. Well, it's a good one to end on. So that's what Square calls closest to the pin mode, really just a way for you to set some different distances and practice your clubs in a more interesting setting than the driving range. The last thing we have available here in the Square Golf app is putting practice. We can set this to whatever distance we want. Let's try something like 25 feet. Green speed 8. Let's give this a shot. So putting on the Square, I do think it's actually valuable for kind of learning distance control with your putter. I think it's helped me that way, but it doesn't really help from the notion of reading green breaks. Okay, so this happens to me sometimes. I'm mid-play, my iPad is literally 4 feet away, directly above the Square launch monitor. It really couldn't be any closer. And I get these periodic disconnects. And I always check, auto reconnect. I click the Square Golf, I click confirm. This will reconnect, it'll get us back in action, but this is a little bit of a nuisance. I wish there was a hardwired connection of some sort or Wi-Fi instead of just Bluetooth. So 25 feet is really double the distance from me to the screen. I'm having to hit these a little bit later than I expected. That's probably a 13-foot putt in real life. This is giving me 18 feet. So 8 is the slowest green speed setting we have here. And I want to show you something. Let's set this to 10 feet. I set up a tape measure here just to verify my distance. I've got exactly 10 feet. Okay, actually that was about 10 feet. That rolled all the way there and that looked perfect. All right, so let's try to hit one like 7 feet and see what we get. All right, so this is giving me 7 feet 4 inches on the Square. In real life, I'm looking at about 6 feet 7 inches. So less than a foot discrepancy. It's not bad. That's pretty solid. The green speeds of 8 is the slowest they get to, and it's still just a tiny bit faster than I have, but it's pretty close. So there you have it, the Square Omni. This is a really compelling unit. I am more impressed with this than I expected to be. I gotta say, if it was me, and I was buying just one launch monitor, and I was buying it with my own money, the Square Omni would certainly be at the top of the list. If I was budget conscious, I would absolutely buy this over the Bushnell Launch Pro, but I do prefer the Bushnell Launch Pro software ecosystem. I prefer the device. You know, it's if money was no object, I'd still go for the Launch Pro. If money is a concern, the Square Omni is a super value. Now, even though this is a 4-camera unit, you don't get video playback, which is a little unfortunate. You get that with the Garmin R50, and that's just a 3-camera unit. I appreciate the face impact. I probably would prefer the face impact over the video if I had to pick one. I wish that was a feature we had here, but you can't ask for everything at that $1,600 price point. Now, there's been a lot of other great reviews on this, and so I'm not going into the side-by-side comparison. Gabe over at Let's Play Through did a really great review on the unit, and he also did a great accuracy test. Check that out if you haven't seen it. And I'll tell you right now, this works great with GS Pro. I'm not gonna show that because it's not really part of the Square package. But if you want to buy GS Pro, that's $250 a year. It's a separate software and it connects to a bunch of different launch monitors, including the Square Omni. If you're interested in the Square Omni or any other launch monitor, you know where to get them, playbetter.com. We've got free shipping, we've got the best prices around, and we've got great customer service. I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned something here. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. If there's anything else you'd like to see this compared to, let me know too, and maybe we can get some other content out for you, comparing this to some of the logical competitors like the Bushnell Launch Pro or the Mevo Gen 2. I hope you learned something. I hope this was helpful. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you on the next one.